to. There's some audio that was leaked of Joe Biden from before the election. Good thing because this could have been rough. But it was basically him talking in a group with progressive leaders and activists, and he made the kind of weird summation that I'll insert here into this part of the podcast.
A lot of people in our community are getting a little anxious because they are not seeing enough of the progress they thought they would have seen at this point. Let's not disappoint them, and let's not get to a place where voters in Georgia begin to second guess.
Okay, let me respond. I've got to go. Let me respond. There's a lot to respond to here. Let's get something straight. You shouldn't be disappointed. What I've done so far is more than anybody else has done this far. Okay, number one. Number two, I mean what I say when I say it. I mean what I say when I say it. I'm the only person who's ever run on 3 platforms that I was told could not possibly win the election, and I never ceased from it. One was on restoring the soul of this country because of what I saw happen in Charlottesville. That was it. No one else was talking about it. The words of presidents matter. Nobody else, no progressive, was talking about it. I did.
That he was the only person who was fighting and standing up against far right extremism on the left, that no one else was doing it but him. We got that old cranky Uncle Joe tone back, where he was saying that he was responsible for these things and doing more work than anyone else does, talking down to people, which is the same thing we saw from Hillary Clinton, which is the same thing we saw at its worst from Bernie Sanders. It's the same thing that we know a lot of these politicians do, which is just talking down to the activists, belittling the activists, and belittling what they're doing, the actual work they're doing to mobilize for the Democratic Party when they aren't giving them shit. And again, once you have this context of COVID-19 and the fight that's very publicly visible right now during this crisis, and we're seeing how little Democrats are willing to fight, with the exception of maybe the squad members, and thankfully that newly elected cohort is getting a little bit bigger. The Democrats are not willing to actually fight for people and put in the work for the votes that they need to remain politically relevant. And so, I think they've only got a couple of elections left in them in order for the insurgent left to maintain power. But if the left doesn't get what it wants and what it wants soon, the Democratic Party is going to dissolve and eat itself the same way the Republican Party currently is. And Caesar, how's Cyberpunk going? Because that might be kind of what's going to be the thing that's happening. That's at least kind of my take. But again, sorry. The clip of Joe Biden, the main point of that was just so infuriating. I want to get what y'all think about that.
I'll start off real quick. I think that for me, there's 2 things that really, I guess I'm learning. I guess I'm sitting here and I'm just observing right now. I'm not quick to make a distinction of how the 4 years are gonna go, but I'm just sitting back and I'm learning about how this is gonna go forward with Joe Biden. Is it gonna be we just gotta hope he doesn't go too get off my lawn, or we just gotta keep we hope he doesn't get too fired up, and then hope he's calmed down? Because 2 things I didn't like about the Zoom call. Number one, it's I don't like the sense of I did it all. I hate when politicians do that, because the number one thing about democracy is the people come together to make decisions, right? We vote this. So when you come with the approach of I did it, then that takes an authoritarian role. I'm the captain, I'm the hero, I've done it all. When you weren't even so I don't like that. That always bothers me. And that's, I think, what Dan's kind of alluding to, what is going to be dangerous moving forward for the Democratic Party. Because as we see the Democratic Party, there's kind of 2 sides that's emerging. There's a side that's the old school boomer Democrats, like Joe Biden, that style, and then more of the more progressive and more of looking at the world in a different perspective, Medicare for all, whatever the hell you want to call them, a Green New Deal Democrats that are kind of making slow but progress within circles, especially in places like California. These areas, it's making more progress. Another thing I didn't like is I didn't like his tone. It's already kind of a discussion in the past. It's already something that was dealt with in terms of March and May, and with the BLM protests and kind of everything that was going on. say what you want about a lot of like African American leaders within these communities and what they do. I'm not here to vet them, and I think that's the corny approach. People saying, "Well, you don't even look at these guys." Well, I'm not here to vet them. That's not. They're in that role. They're just approaching the what's going to be president of the United States and talking about what the community response is. Hey, like the community, especially in places like Georgia, these areas, turnout was big. You're going to be president. This is the frustration the community's had with the past with Democrats. We're just bringing this to the table. His response was like, okay, you're level 6. Let me come back to you at level 9, and like start screaming about you what I've done for against radicals and what I did in Charlottesville. Like, dude, like you need to like just take a breath right now, because the approach isn't like attack when people are bringing issues to the forefront. It's about what I wanted is discussion. The important thing is discussion. My theory, though, is that, I mean, this is early and I don't like even doing this, but I think that with this presidency, we're gonna have like the approach of like we're gonna see how it's gonna go, and I think we're gonna see a battle at the end of between, do the people want to go back to Republican and whatever the hell who emerges, what creature emerges from that side at that time period, or are we gonna go to like, is there gonna be more of a upbringing to the other side of the Democrats, that like the AOCs and the Bernies, like those people, are we gonna see an upsurge for support for that end? Because maybe this is a path where we're like, okay, that for the Trump era was wild. I'm glad Biden's here, but it's just not enough of what we need. So that's just what I'm waiting. I'm kind of in an observing state, but what he said is it was a gross Zoom call, and he's damn sure lucky it happened after it's all over.
Bam, what do you think about that? And what do you think to like Caesar's point that like he is sort of getting new, like he is taking a stand back at this? Like, do you think he should just wait and see, or is this more of the way that like this is Joe Biden going like, look, this is who I really am behind closed doors. This is how I do that so-called transactional politics that I'm so lauded for in the establishment circles. Is this just like what we're going to have to get used to as people on the left?
Well, I mean, we've seen with Trump that like what somebody says in that office just doesn't matter. Like Trump said whatever the hell he wanted, he did whatever the hell he wanted, and it really just didn't matter. So for me personally, I don't have any expectations of that office, like the person in that office. Just like don't make things way worse. I didn't care about Joe Biden. I didn't like vote for him in the primary. I didn't want him. Caesar stupid. I didn't want him. I don't have any that's what I expect from him. Like he's smug, he's entitled, he's old rich white dude. Like that's what I expect for him to be like. So yeah, I'm not like shocked. And also I'm like, well, like seems like that's just what it's gonna be. If he was somebody that I like, let's say I voted for Bernie in the primary. If this was Bernie, then it'd bother me. I'd be like, damn, dude, like, come on, man. I was like, going for you, dog. But like Joe Biden, I'm like, that's who y'all wanted. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I feel.
Right. I sort of see that. Sean, what are your thoughts on it?
It's just another slap down to progressives that's been happening. That's been going on for this country for a very, very long time. I mean, pretty much already know how the presidency is going to go down. It's going to go down very similar to Obama, so that milk toast neoliberal centrism, protecting corporations, screwing over people, invading other countries, and drowning them a couple times just for the hell of it, for shits and giggles, and then slapping down and making some, small cultural things to keep some of the population happy, but then really not doing much for working people. That needs to be done. So it's going to boil over at some point. For sure. You have that, as Caesar was saying, you have a contingency of younger people that are more progressive thinking, more open-minded, especially towards policies and stuff that will help working people, that I think will now, especially as more of them are getting into voting ages in the next election, it'll be interesting to see how they turn out and stuff, and how, if more and more people are getting involved in the political process and stuff, how their eyes are going to be opened to showing how, basically how much neoliberalism, how much centrism really screws over working people unless you're extremely wealthy or you're an insider within them. So it'll be, it'll show more people of that. But the Zoom call and stuff, that, I mean, it pisses me off, but I mean, it's something that I'm really shocked per se. It just will show more people. I'm like, look, this is who you voted for. This is what you're all standing. It's not that great of a person. So there you go.
And you know, there's a lot of, I agree with Sean. You know, the only thing to say is, like, you know, obviously we're kind of, a lot of us in agreement here. Democratic Party is just like, they just like, it's like they always have their shoelaces untied. They just don't know how to like really move forward, and they're afraid to like really grasp and like another part of this nation that is like looking for that. Like, I think a lot of young people that have just turned in that 18 to 25 range in America, or just turning 18, are really looking to like kind of find a home a little bit, and those that are like not really with like that whole Trump era that we had, because he's already passed me, we moved on. The whole Trump era, like they're looking for a home kind of, and it's hard for them to really be like, yeah, but like Biden, so it's tough for them. But I don't know if it's gonna go exactly like Obama, the Obama era. Like, I can see some similarities, obviously, especially like while they were combined. But I always thought even Biden was a little bit more like conservative than Obama was. And I think that he was just kind of taking a step back role in a lot of things, because obviously Obama was such a popular figure. Even when he did the water thing in Flint and all that stuff, like he was, which is wild. He was still a popular figure, and he still is till today. I mean, he released a 900-page book or whatever. Another version of Harry Potter just came out, so it's ridiculous. But I think with Biden, I think especially if the Senate, if the Democrats do get the Senate, I don't know if necessarily things are going to go the same. I think that there are a lot of there's some new voices in the Senate that I am curious to see. I am curious to see what they bring to the board. I am curious to see what they vote. Biden did make some promises, and I think promises in the past that presidents have made have been able to flip-flop. But I think a lot of eyes, especially after what the entire nation went through, like we've never had something that really affected the nation in total, such as the pandemic, such as we talked about unemployment insurance for Americans. We talked about the student loan debt that was promised. You know, that is going to be, I think, Democrats really got to be on it if they do get the Georgia runoff. They really got to be on it about some of those promises, because, you know, a lot of people decided to make a big decision. Georgia, if they go through, they made a big decision in terms of switching out. I'm very curious to see what happens moving forward with some of the bills that are passed and the stimulus stuff going forward, because I think the eyes of the nation are going to be on them, and the other side of the media is going to be on them too if they don't fulfill some of the promises they made originally. So